Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is the place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual. I am asexual and I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the great big subscribe button and the bell icon right now. So you might have noticed my new book coming out is called Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual. Why did I decide to write this book, especially when I haven't yet published my Asexual Guide to Sex book? And that book I've been working on for nearly 4.5 years now, since June 2019. So, yes, we're now in November 2023. So why did I decide to do this? If you've got this question in your mind and you've got other questions such as why should you bother buying this book, then stay tuned. If you don't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of this awesome Asexual Perspectives book. This is a best-selling book out on Amazon and was the first book I ever published for asexuals. So make sure you grab yourself a copy of this best-selling book if you haven't done so already. So, Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual. I know you've got a lot of questions on your mind, so I am going to answer them one by one as to why I chose to write Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, especially when I haven't finished my Asexual Guide to Sex book yet, which is still going to be finished, but published next year now. So, what sparked the idea? What sparked the idea actually was back in September when I had a vision before that of my Indian soulmate. Like, it was before September, so it's in August. I think it was like the week before, something like that. And I had this vision. Like, I have like some, how can I describe it? If you're not spiritual, you'll probably think I'm talking a load of rubbish, but it's fine. I don't mind what you think. So I can visualize something. Well, I used to be able to dream stuff that came true. And I had this in childhood and it came true, but usually in a slightly different way. And I had this in childhood, and it's psychic abilities basically to be able to see into the future. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. I don't mind. It's not a problem for me. I know you probably think I'm talking out of my hat, but that's fine. And so anyway, as a child, I was able to see things. Usually it came to me in dreams, and it was before this thing happened. And when it does happen, it happened slightly differently. But the things in my dream did come true, but in a different way. For example, I dreamt that one of my goldfish had died, but it was a cross between two different types of goldfish. I had three at the time. One was there were three, but one was a small one, and there was two big ones, but they had different colorings. And I dreamt that one of the fish that was a gold color actually was the color of the white one. And I dreamt that that died, so it was a crossover between the two, when actually it was the third one, the smaller one, that died. I went downstairs, this is when I lived at home with my parents, and the small one was dead. So I had the dream about a goldfish dying, but it was a different one, the third one. And the other one was a combination of the other two, which meant, I guess, that it must have been the third one anyway, if that makes sense. I also had a dream about a place that I went to see with my parents, and it wasn't, in reality, it wasn't me and my parents that ended up living there. It was my uncle and auntie, and the picture in my dream was actually on the wall. So it's clairvoyancy, if you want to call it that. And I don't like having this ability usually because it scares me. I don't want to be able to predict things like that in the future, because it feels like you're just living in the future all the time, like you've lived this before and you're not present. And so I decided to try and stop that early on, years ago, by purposely telling my family, my parents, about this type of thing. And the more you tell someone, in my opinion, the more it can stop these things from happening in real life, because you've divulged this information to someone. This is just how it works for me. And I, to cut a long story short, I decided to stop that. Anyway, I have a soulmate belief from a past life who's Indian. And so in reality, not in sleep mode, I had this visualization of this Indian guy in my flat, which I don't usually have guys in my flat anyway, in my lounge, diner, kitchen area, if you like. And this guy was 22. He had this cute button nose, he had short dark hair, was clean shaven, and I had never seen this guy in my life before. And it wasn't while I was asleep, it wasn't in a dream. I saw this vision in my mind whilst I was awake. And so this is really unusual for me. And so I shared in a shorts video on this channel, you can go back and look, that I had a visualization of my Indian soulmate because I thought this guy was going to be my soulmate. I also was able to visualize him on the cathedral green as well another time. So this was all very strange for me. I'd never seen this guy in my life before. I didn't know who he was. And this was really, really bizarre and weird. So I'm like, what's going on? But anyway, I thought this guy was my soulmate because I said to God, show me my soulmate. And so that's what came of it. And so I was really happy because I thought this guy's going to come into my life at one point and it's going to be my soulmate. And then I went to the cinema. It was National Cinema Day. And I really loved going to cinema, but I was poorly at the time. I didn't know I had COVID. I thought I just had like flu-like symptoms, but I was actually feeling better than I had been. And the cinema makes me feel better anyway. And so I went to the cinema and I decided to see, I think it was, I booked in for 4 movies that day. Or was it 5? Anyway, I had an extra one, but I was there anyway, so I thought I'll get this extra one, which was Gran Turismo, which I'd already seen before, but I really loved the movie. And thanks to YouTube High Five, I got it to see it for free. Sorry, my eye's hurting at the moment. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I went to see this movie again, and then next to where I was sat was this Indian guy, but he didn't look like the guy in my vision. He had long brown hair, uh, from what I remember, and I think he had glasses. And anyway, did he? I think so. I can't remember. Anyway, this guy didn't look like the guy in my vision because he was like long hair and facial hair, and I'm not into that. So, anyway, I sat next to him. I got talking to him because I thought he's Indian. He seemed really nice in the cinema. We were chatting about different stuff, seemed to both like similar movies, and I got on well with him. And then I found out that he's 21. And I'm like, oh, he looked older than that, so I didn't know. And so, yeah, he looked like about 23. So that was really interesting. And anyway, so to cut a long story short, we ended up going out to the cinema, chatting together. We ended up on the cathedral green. That was quite interesting. And we ended up chatting, and I thought we got on really, really well. And he said he felt a connection with me. So, of course, when some guy who I don't even know says, I feel I got a connection with you, it feels like we've known each other ages, then for me, as a hyper romantic asexual, that to me is something someone would say if they're feeling a kind of romantic connection to me. That's what I would usually like, a soulmate type of connection. You know what I mean? Like deeper than just a stranger that we just met, So to me, that really meant something. And I thought this guy was single. Anyway, to cut a long story shorter, this guy turned out not to be the right guy for me. He's very dark in his mind, and I hope that he gets the love and support and care he needs to find the light in his life, and immerse himself in light. And I think his life would turn completely around if he could be, looking towards the light, thinking of lighter things, and if he could truly embrace the light side of life rather than embracing and following the dark side, if you know what I mean. So, I wish him to be really happy, and I wish him to have the best life possible, But anyway, that connection had to end. It didn't end particularly great. And he did try to blur my reality by denying something he said and then admitting it in the end. So that wasn't a good thing he did. He didn't apologize for hurting my feelings, which was a shame because, as adults, we have to take responsibility for our own actions and the way we speak to people and what we say. And, you know, he should have said, "I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings." But anyway, he was in love with someone else. He Even though he's single, he wasn't single in his heart, if you like. So, you know, that was never gonna pan out well because I did get feelings for him really quickly. And the reason, well, one of the main reasons I got feelings for him really quickly is because I saw a not a Facebook, Instagram photograph of his face from a previous year, and he was the guy that I visualized in the visualization I had. Like, he was exactly as he was in the vision I had, but it wasn't him now. That was from a previous year, like 2 years ago, I think it was, something like that. And so that's really interesting. So he wouldn't have been 22 then, but he looks older anyway. He looks older by a couple of years anyway. So yeah, that was really strange. And he would be 22 now, but he was 21 when I saw him. So that was really strange. And, you know, I believe everything happens for a reason. And personally, for me, I have to ask myself, okay, what is the reason why this is happening now? Like, what lesson can I learn from it? What can I take away from this situation that is to my benefit, if you know what I mean, when it wasn't a very good situation really for me to be in. Yes, you could argue I put myself in that position because I did approach the guy, I did talk to him, I did get on with him, I did spend time. We spent the night together, not in a physical sense, just outside looking under the stars and chatting. And for me, that's my ideal kind of scenario with an actual romantic guy. But, you know, like, we weren't doing any physical stuff. You know, like, if I was in a romantic relationship, I'd be kissing, cuddling, and holding hands with the guy, which obviously wasn't going on between me and this stranger. We did hug though, but he hugged me for ages. But I think that's just because he's got a lack of um, love over here for him, you know? So I don't think it's necessarily because he liked me. But you know, as a romantic, a hyper romantic asexual, I view these types of things very differently. And this is what sparked the idea for the book. Like, the situation with him, really. I'm like, what good can come of this? Like, what can I learn from it? And also, like, how can I express my feelings and emotions in a way that's going to be helpful to me and get them out? So, usually, I would write in a private journal. I would journal my way out these types of things. And I would usually keep everything like private in that sense. But then it suddenly came to me and dawned on me that what if I put my feelings, be very careful, obviously, of people's identities, because I'm not obviously going to reveal that person's identity. But what if I actually shared my feelings and thoughts and emotions with the world? Like, because people don't really understand hyperromantics. They can't really understand the psychology of them. I don't think they can't really understand how difficult it is living as a hyperromantic. However, there are very much blessings with it as well. Because as a hyperromantic asexual, especially as an extrovert hyperromantic asexual, I go on some kind of crazy adventures, I think, in my life that I feel that other people wouldn't go on, wouldn't dream of actually putting into action, even though they would think about it, you know? And I feel that people need to hear this in the world. People need to understand what hyperromanticism is like. Maybe more people, hello, Jonathan, nice to see you. Maybe more people can actually understand hyperromantics, and maybe more hyperromantics will come out of the woodwork, as it were, and maybe more people will get to understand the way it works, and that a lot of it is kind of involuntary how you feel. Like, we feel we can, like, control our emotions a lot, but in actual fact it's hard to control your emotions. And if you are a hyper romantic, you're very much in the moment feeling what you feel. And I think you have to discern the difference between what you should think and feel ideally and what you actually do feel and think, really. And I think this is a big truth that a lot of people like to bury or keep secret because people don't want to share this vulnerability. They don't want people to know that it's really difficult being hyper romantic. They don't want people to know that they have love feelings or very much like deep feelings and emotions very soon on, because it's not nice admitting that in some ways, because it's like you're being really vulnerable. People will be like very judgmental of you, saying, oh, you shouldn't feel like that. But it doesn't matter what people think and say. It doesn't matter, because if you feel that way, you feel that way. And we shouldn't be gaslighting ourselves either. We shouldn't get into a state where we're gaslighting ourselves and trying to pretend that we don't feel the way we do, because that is suppressing and repressing emotions. And that's actually very unhealthy. So I want to show behind the scenes of my life as a hyper romantic, and how I deal with difficult situations, which may not be the best way to deal with it or the right way to deal with it. Or I'm not saying everyone should deal with it that way, but I feel that the story behind my life is very important to tell. It's a real story. It's raw and real and authentic and true. And I think I can add a lot to the non-fiction literary world. My book, Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, I would say, although it's non-fiction, it's very much got a fictional kind of feel to it, in the sense of like, it's like a romance book, but with myself, if you know what I mean, but with guys coming into my life. It's kind of strange, but I think it's something that would be beneficial to the literacy world. Jonathan, in general, I sometimes find a conflict between operating on my rational side in Spock mode. Oh, I know what you mean. But sometimes feelings can be like a stubborn horse. Yes, Jonathan. Not romantic feelings, but feelings in general. Yes, Jonathan, you totally understand me. Thank you so much for being here in chat. I really appreciate you. Yeah, that's exactly what it's like for me. It is like you've got this kind of like rational side, like your mind saying, like, this guy's no good for me, right? Clearly, like particularly with the guy back in September, he hasn't really, he's playing two lives. He's got two personas, one to the public and one in private, which is very different, which is always not a good thing. Like having two personas is not good, right? A lot of people with personality disorders, for example, have two personas. He didn't tell me he had personality disorder, but those are symptoms of a personality disorder, when you're completely portraying a different side of you in public to what you are doing in private, But this stems from not being the person usually not being their true authentic self, because they're worried about what people say, they're worried about judgment, they're worried about criticism. And some of this can come from deep childhood trauma. But what we have to do when we recognize these things in ourselves is we need to work on ourselves, not bury ourselves in the sand. And so even though like I'm a hyperromantic, I do work on that. But you have to obviously accept yourself as you are in the moment as well, because otherwise that leads to not liking yourself. And I feel that the adventures I go on because of my hyperromanticism make my life more interesting and exciting. So it does have, although it has a difficult side, it has a really beneficial side, where it's like these are kind of crazy things that most people wouldn't do. But because I'm me, and I got the personality I've got, and I'm extrovert, and the hyperromanticism, it just allows me to be able to do things that other people wouldn't even dream of doing, or maybe they think they can't do. But I have worked on myself a lot to change myself. I used to be introverted, shy, lonely, depressed girl years ago. I talk about this in the speech I did at Oxford University, which is going to be on this channel eventually, but it's got to be edited first. It takes 6 to 8 weeks for the cameraman to edit the footage before it eventually goes on this channel. So you'll be able to see how I transitioned in my life from being a shy, lonely, depressed, suicidal girl years ago to becoming extrovert, loud, bubbly, talkative, and to be able to do this channel. And I just think that Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual will meet the people's needs that have a desire to read some fiction, but it's not fiction, it's reality. Just like this show is like a reality TV show most of the time, I would say, because I'm sharing my life journey throughout the years on here. The book's a bit like that. It's a bit like your reality TV behind the scenes. And so I think that adds a very exciting, interesting, dramatic flavor to the literary world. And it's kind of like blending, it is a total non-fiction book, but it's blending fictional style in some way with non-fiction, I feel. And there are parts of it with my hyperromanticism where I'm visualizing a future that doesn't exist. So I'm going off into, if this guy was a good guy for me, you know, like the what if. We all do this if we are like, well, we can do this in different scenarios. If we're a hyperromantic, we'll do this with different guys and be like, oh, what if this guy was like this? Obviously, you can't live on what ifs. You have to live with the reality of what they truly like in the moment. But my mind does go off in the book to like, this would be my ideal scenario now if I was to actually be with this guy in the future and he wasn't like the, the guy that's not good for me right now, right? And I think this adds an element of romantic kind of, I don't call it fantasy because I believe everything can become a reality. So for me, I don't fantasize. Other people might disagree looking at it, but to me I don't have any fantasies because there's nothing that I believe, that I think, that can't be a reality. I mean, we're in the age of AI now, for God's sake, so clearly a lot of the science fiction films can even be true. Jonathan, I actually have a different definition of introversion. For me, an introvert is someone who's predominantly in their own head, disconnected from the external environment, even in social situations. But that's what I was like. So that was what I was like. I didn't socialize with people. I didn't like to be touched by strangers, couldn't be hugged by strangers. I spent nearly all my time on my own, didn't have any friends. At primary school, I was talking to a bar on the wall, for God's sake, because that's how lonely my life was. That's how introverted I was. And I didn't get on in groups at all. It's only through since 2015, when I started hosting asexual meetups, that I became comfortable, like, not just being in groups, but hosting them, organizing them. Asexuality completely changed my life, and that's why I share at Oxford. So I used to be exactly like that, in my own head, disconnected from the external environment pretty much. And I had huge social anxiety. To overcome social anxiety took me years. It's incredible. Like, I can't wait for my story to come out, my personal story of what I shared at Oxford University, because you'll see it in like the details of it then. You know, I used to be a totally different girl. You know, I would never go clubbing. I didn't go clubbing in birth certificate age till I was 24. But I have the mindset, I reprogrammed my mind to be like 21, obviously. But in birth certificate age, I was 24 when I first went clubbing. I didn't go clubbing before that. I don't usually share this, but I didn't go clubbing. I was like going to be the girl who never ever went clubbing and proud of it because everyone else went. Now I love clubbing. Now it's like part of my soul and I can't get enough of it. So I've completely changed my life around. So as your definition of introvert, I was that person. And I'm still in my own head quite a lot, even though I'm extroverted. So I have some introverted tendencies still because I'm always talking to myself. That's normal for me. But in my diary confessions of a hyperromantic asexual, you get those thoughts. So you get the thoughts on paper that usually I would keep secret. You get to know stuff about me personally that probably I've never shared on this channel before, or not shared it much. And so diary confession of a hyperromantic asexual, the benefits as well is it's got life lessons in there. So as I go along, divulging my personal thoughts, feelings, and emotions as a hyperromantic and what's going on in my life at the time, you get the contrast between my hyperromanticism over guys and me trying to get on with my actual life, which is very difficult. Like it's a bit like kryptonite for my soul sometimes, my hyperromanticism. Also, it's something that brings out the tiger in me, if you like. I don't know how to describe it. There's obviously pros and cons to being a hyperromantic. There's benefits and non-benefits. And it's kind of difficult when you're a hyperromantic and you literally are kind of dealing with the reality of the situation of what you've got to get on with, and also your hyperromanticism over guys all the time. It's like kind of crazy. And so I think people are going to love the book because they're going to get life lessons of what I learned at the time. And so obviously that's going to be hugely beneficial. So I think people are going to love the book because it's non-fiction, it's reality, but it's like a reality TV show style behind the scenes book. Also, they're probably going to think it's got a fictional fantasy element to it because I say, oh, what if I was with this guy? Like, how would this pan out? There's a really weird thing that happened when I was writing the book as well. A very, very, very strange thing. Right, I'm just doing the end of the book now, but very strange. Something in the book has already happened. Well, one thing in the book's happened in real life, but not exactly. So, I told you at the beginning of this video about I can predict things. it's really crazy because in the book, there's something in the book that I said, what if this happened with the guy? The rest of it's not happened. There's just one particular thing at the moment that actually did happen. It freaked me out. It happened pretty much. I think it was like the week after I wrote in the book. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. But I think I better leave that for the actual readers of the book. Right, because I think it's like, how did that happen? I'm still in disbelief. I don't believe it. I'm like, it's true. I've seen evidence of it, so I'm like, that's crazy. Jonathan, for me, I can spend hour-long intellectual debates with myself in my head, which is why I consider myself an introvert. Specifically, I'm ambivert, depending on who I'm with. Uh-huh. Can you write the lottery numbers in your next book? Unfortunately not. I don't do the lottery, and I don't predict things for other people either. So it's only to do with myself. I don't predict things for other people. I've never been able to. I don't even go there to visualize things for other people. It's always been to do with me and my life, like deja vu. So I don't predict anything for anyone else. I don't know if I'd ever have that ability, but I don't know that I don't. At the moment, I'm not aware that I have that ability, and I wouldn't even try to predict other people's stuff. But I have it for myself. That's what I mean. But I'm very in tune with myself. And I don't do the lottery. I don't believe in it. Like, I believe you create your own luck in life and you create your own fortune in life, and you need to be determined to succeed in doing that for yourself. Oh, that was a joke. Oh, but some people who are genuinely, I don't know if you saw the beginning of this video, Jonathan, but I do actually have psychic abilities, but for myself, but I tried to not have them for years because I don't like it. Some people love it. I don't like it. It's like you never actually live in the moment. You're always predicting. You're always, you end up being in deja vu the whole time. I had it as a child. It was awful. I had to stop it. It was driving me mad. No, I came in 30 minutes into the video. Yeah, so it actually, yeah. So that's why I didn't think you were joking, because I did actually say I have like clairvoyant abilities with myself. But I've only just started talking about this on this channel because people might think that she's crazy. She's not telling the truth. It's fine if people don't believe me. I don't care. It's something I have tried not to have the ability for years because I actually don't like it. Liam, hi, beautiful Sandra. You're an awesome angel. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Liam. Lovely to see you. So yeah. But anyway, it is kind of crazy because, like I said, something in the book, one thing came true already from the book, and when I wrote it, and I'm like, I told my best friend, they're the only one, because my best friend, Andy, they actually work in editorial. That's what they do part-time. They've got a part-time job and they work in editorial. So they're going to be proofreading and looking at the book. But with a Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, I have to know there's not much editing that goes on because it's a completely different type and style of book I've ever written in my life. I've had to do some research on it. And there's actually not that many diary books around, which is why it's good. But mine's going to be slightly different. It's a quirky book because I publish under my own book publishing imprint, Quirky Books. So I'm having to make it my own style, obviously. But it's raw and real, like you're writing in a diary. So you don't do grammatically correct stuff. You write as in you're talking to. So when I'm writing like in a diary. So I'm writing like different dates. In this diary, I'm not doing every date. I'm doing as and when I need to speak in this diary, but I'm like talking to you direct in first person. So it's very different from writing these type of big books like this, which is all structured, like edited multiple times. And this took me a year to write, and this type of stuff. It's very different. A diary book is very like, like you're just having a conversation like now, casual conversation, or obviously it's quite intense, some of it, because I'm writing about my life. So I'm writing it as though I'm writing in my diary, first person. I'm talking directly to the reader. I've never done this style of book before. I'm not sure how it's going to go down. I'm not sure if people are going to like it or not like it because you don't edit it much. It's literally raw, real slang, colloquial language, stuff you wouldn't usually put so much in books. So it's got more of a fictional style to it, even though it's non-fiction, if that makes sense. But I think people will like it from the fact that it's kind of like, it's non-fiction, but it's got elements of what you would see in fiction in there, and I think people will like that. I think people will be kind of drawn in by that. I've read some to my best friend who's gonna, like, be proofreading it for me anyway, and they said it's very entertaining. So I think with this book, people are gonna get, information, obviously, about what it's like to be a hyper romantic. They're gonna get insights that they probably haven't really realized before, because 'cause they're gonna see how it affects me on a daily basis, weekly basis, or, when I'm talking about it. They'll get life lessons, so you'll get life lessons in the book. It's also got, obviously, it's quite emotional, dramatic, in parts. It's also very tense in parts, but it's also very entertaining. Like, it's got funny bits in there as well. Would there be an audiobook version? I haven't done an audiobook for any of my other books, but I think I might do this, but I've got to have a place to record it where I don't have background noise, and where I currently live does. So I probably have to hire a room just to record it. Unless I did it in the dead of night when there was no one around, but even I live next to a road here, that's the problem. But I have thought it might be good to do an audiobook for this because it is a diary and I'm speaking the whole time. So in the book, I'm like speaking to you. So I thought it might be good, but I've something I've never tried before, and I know it's a longer process to do that. You've got to upload it to a platform called ACX, which is run by Amazon, but it still requires different measures, and they require a certain level of audio quality as well. So I don't know if I bring that out straight away. It's going to be an ebook for definitely. It's going to be really low cost an ebook initially, just to get a lot of sales and reviews. I'll be honest with you. So if you are thinking about buying the book, it'll be really, really, really very inexpensive on the ebook. So I'd recommend everyone can get the Kindle edition and then get an audio or paperback as well when that's out. I'm not sure if I'll release the paperback exactly the same time as the ebook. Usually a lot of the time I always release a Kindle book first and then I do the paperback like a month later. But I recommend everyone getting the Kindle version. I'd like to get it on the bestsellers list if I'm honest. And usually any money I make from the asexual books I produce anyway, it goes back into helping asexuals, like to pay for domain hosting, to pay for website hosting, Well, website hosting, then you have to buy the domains every year. You have to renew domains, to pay for more expensive internet that I have to do to have uploads and downloads and be able to stream like this. You know what I mean? So, but it's going to be really expensive, but only for a very limited time because I want to maximize the sales and also hopefully people will review the book. I'd like to know if people like it or not. If people like it, I'll probably write a whole series of it. If people are not so keen on it, or it's all right, or they just like it in and of itself, but they don't want another one, then I'll probably just leave it at the one. But it is something I visualize as a series because I think it'd be really interesting to continue seeing the behind the scenes of my life at certain times of my life, not necessarily every single time. That's like in the diary book, I'm not writing every single day because in my normal diary, like I have here, I don't write in every single day. But I have put some very interesting stuff in there, and I've also put some normal stuff in there. So at the moment, it hasn't been edited at all. I'm still finishing the final part of. Um, I sometimes talk about I'm going to the toilet now. So I'm literally writing in the middle of writing. I'm like, I've got to go and get something to eat now. I've got to go to the toilet now. And I'm like thinking, should I be leaving that in there or not? But it kind of breaks the text up because with my like books like this, it's very short, snappy chapters, which is what I usually like to write, especially as I'm a slow reader myself. And it does bode well for people who are autistic. They tend to like the snappier, shorter chapters. But in the diary, sometimes I'm just going on talking about one particular thing for a long time. And so I sometimes think that when I'm going off and get food, it's better to say, like, I'm going off to get food now because also the reason I've done that on purpose is because I sometimes come back in a slightly different mood and my tone can change in the book. And I think if you swap tones and there's a disconnect with the reader, they're like, hang on a minute, you were writing this way, but now I'm feeling something different from you. I think if I let people know I've gone to the toilet or I've gone to get a snack, I think it just makes it quite fun. It makes it very easy to read. It makes it like you're with me. You're spending like a day with me or a certain amount of hours with me in my home. And also it gives you kind of like a sense of why I've changed my tone, why I've suddenly diverted. And the book does swap as well, which is very interesting. I don't know if people like that or not. So it's kind of like swaps timelines at the end. So it kind of, because I'm talking about Oxford now, what happened with Oxford behind the scenes in the book, which happened last month. So towards the end of the book, you're swapping timelines from how I'm feeling now, what's going on in my life now, to how it was then in that moment. and I'm swapping. But I like that because I think it keeps it interesting for the reader. I think having it makes sure it's not boring. It's kind of always like you're like, hang on a minute, what happened there? Oh, she's gone off and talking about something else now, but I want to know what happened then. So you have to keep reading the book to find out what happened because I continue that bit later. So I like this. And this is how I actually like in real life. Like I go off on tangents. Like I'll do one thing because I'm a hyper romantic, right? Hyperness. I'm a hyper personality usually, right? And so I'll be doing something and then all of a sudden I'll switch to something else sometimes, you know? Uh so Jonathan, for me, I like to listen to things while doing other things. Yeah. Some people I know who watch this channel, they will do things while they're listening to me in the background because they like my voice. I do have a good voice. I've been told by the BBC Radio when I did a radio interview. If you didn't know, I did a radio interview, or they interviewed me, should I say, Graham Torrington. It is on the videos tab on this channel if you haven't seen it yet. And the people who did the radio interview, like his secretary, like PA, personal assistant, I should say, said how good I was on the show and how good my voice is for radio. Because I used to be a hospital radio presenter for years. So I had a lot of training in that respect. And they said, you're welcome back anytime, which obviously would be a good time to get more publicity for my books. So Liam, you are always genuine and honest, Sandra. Jonathan, I also love going on tangents and off tangents. Oh, thank you, Liam, for your kind comments. Lots of love. And thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate you saying you go off on tangents. Yeah, I think it keeps life interesting sometimes. I think if someone's talking in a monotonous tone and they're just sat there, it's just so boring. I wouldn't want to read a book like that. I'd rather read a book that's like, hang on a minute, she's doing this, then she's doing that. And it's kind of like, I can't keep up with her, but I kind of like it because it's like suspenseful, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like, you know, like you're doing one thing, you're doing the next. It's like, hang on a minute. It's a bit like cliffhangers, constant cliffhangers, I think. That's how I feel when I'm writing the book. I feel like this is really intense. This is really like, and all of a sudden I'll say something. It's like, but we haven't finished yet, Sandra. What's going to happen? And it's like, I'll go off on something else. But I think it keeps it interesting. It does. It's a bit like, you know, when you see a soap opera or something, a short one like Neighbours, for example. I used to be a Neighbours addict years ago. I don't watch it anymore. But you know, like you'll have half an hour of Neighbours and I'll leave it on a cliffhanger. You'll be like, hang on a minute, what's happening to that character and what's happening to the other two that did something earlier on? And I kind of feel that's the style of the book. So I'm very positive about the book, but you know, some people might think it's a load of rubbish, which is fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I've never written this style of book before, so I don't honestly know how people are going to take it. I just get very excited and feel it's right for me to do. And that's why I started the book, because intuitively it's like something I had to do, and I had to do it now. Back in September when I started it, it's like you have to do this now. And I believe everything happens for a reason. And I believe that the visualization I have my Indian soulmate, the guy that showed up in my life that wasn't my actual soulmate, which was very painful to get over. I believe everything happens for a reason. And so I don't believe that visualization was not meant to happen. It clearly was. And I believe that if this book takes off and the series takes off, that the idea that sparked the book in the first place was the experience I had with that guy and the visualization. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have started writing the book. So if the book's a huge success, then obviously I know the reason why I had the vision, why the guy ended up not being my soulmate, really did help me in my life in some way, you know? And it's just helping me to just do a different style of book. Jonathan, I would either love the switching or it would drive me up the wall, and I can't decide which. Yes, I know. I think my book might be a bit like Marmite. Some people will love it or some people won't love it at all. I don't know. So I don't know how people are going to take that. Some people might get really confused by it as well. Obviously, there might be confusion, like, hang on a minute, she was talking about one thing, but now she's talking about something else. But hopefully they'll understand it with the way I've written it, you know? And when I'm talking to someone in general conversation, I'm switching conversations. So it's literally like you're with me and I'm talking to you in the book. It's like, you know, it's like you're sat in front of me. It's like, oh, hang on a minute, I really need to go to the toilet now. I've got to go and get a snack and then I'll resume talking to you. How I this type of thing. And so, you know, I've done it in a certain style. Like some people think, well, you don't need to have going to the toilet in there. But the reason I've kept it in there at the moment, obviously I haven't edited it yet, is because I do change my tonality, I think, when I go back to writing it sometimes. I haven't written every single time I go to the toilet, but I think in some cases I've needed to write that because when you change tones, it's you can feel if you're talking directly to the reader, right? I used to write, so I started years ago writing a book, a non-fiction book, which I've never finished because it was non-fiction, and it caused me a lot of emotional pain and upset because I get into the characters, right? And the character was going through a lot of trauma and I couldn't deal with it. It was wrecking my life and making me depressed. So I stopped doing that. And then I realized I'm born to do non-fiction, also children's books I started writing years ago. I haven't published them yet, right? So I decided that I wanted to do non-fiction. That's what I'm good at. And this book, I think, like, although it's non-fiction, it has elements of fictional style in it. And I just feel that when you're changing your tones, when you're that close to the reader, they can feel you. When you connect on a deep level to the reader, as though you're speaking to them through the pages of the book, they can tell if you've changed your tonality. They can tell if you're, it's like they're in the room with you, you're talking to them, and you're not paying them so much attention. They can feel that. So I've kept some of this stuff in there purposely because I want people to understand that when I'm changing, it's because I've gone off and done something, if you know what I mean. Going to the toilet in your book helps you do point E. Point E. Oh, I can't read that. Going to the toilet in your book helps you do point E, evidence, explanation. Point, evidence, explanation. I don't quite understand that. Point, evidence, explanation. I don't quite understand that. I don't actually do fiction books usually. I don't know if that's a fictional term. Point, evidence, explanation. I don't know. I haven't actually put about the things in the book. I might actually put the bit at front of the diary book, like why I wrote the things I did. I don't know, because some diary books they have that and others don't. They go straight into the meat of the diary, if you know what I mean, like straight into talking. So again, it's a very different style book. With every other book, I would usually put why I've written it, the style it's in, blah blah blah. But I don't know if I should do that or not with this book, because you're meant to go right into the action. So I'm not sure. It's what my English teacher at school used to teach me. It was a joke about the acronym. Oh, right. I've never heard of it before. But anyway, so going back to why did I decide to write this book? I've explained that, but also, like, why did I decide to put this book out, like finish it and do it now rather than my Asexual Guide to Sex book? I think this is very important, right? So my Asexual Guide to Sex book, I have been working on since June 2019. You did hear that right. June 2019. We're now in November 2023, right? So it's nearly 4.5 years. Okay. So the book is very important to me. It's very precious to me. It's the longest book I've ever written in my life, the biggest book, if you like, as well. And there's a lot of stuff in there that's obviously factual. And it's a very, very difficult book to write because it's talking about people's real lives. When you're talking about sex, right? Obviously, I'm a sex repulsed asexual these days, in case you didn't know, but I've had sex in the past, right? And so when I'm writing such a book, I can't just rush it. I have to get it right in my mind and for it to be as good as it can be. At the moment, I moved home this year, in case you didn't know. So I moved home and it was very stressful the end of last year. Beginning of this year, I had to move to where I'm moving now. Took a month to get the place ready. Didn't have any hot water. The shower was broken. There was stuff that needed to be fixed. And the furniture, there was no furniture in here to put anything, which there is now because these curtains are my own and stuff. Right. So I had to pay for a lot for my own furniture in here. It's basically unfurnished place. There was hardly anything. So I had to buy a lot of stuff. I had some friends at the time that helped me. And that's kind of long story, very short, right? So I didn't move in here till February and there's boxes all over the place. And I started my edits back in February for the book, right? But I've realized by doing the edits that's at the moment, like how I've left it, I realized that I still have some chapters that I need to change around and some parts, right? And it's going to take me some time to do that. And in February this year, I started three speaking programs. I bought a speaking package with a company called Blue Talks, which is who I spoke for at Oxford University last month, right? And I'm having ongoing, consistent training with them in public speaking, different elements of it. And so I have a lot of things going on with that. I also am in the new Blue Talks book, volume 11, with Ken Honda and James Redfield, which are huge. James Redfield is the best-selling author of the Celestine Prophecy. So I'm a co-author with him and also with Ken Honda from Mindvalley, also author of Happy Money. These people are very famous, right? So I have a chapter in that book, and my Oxford University talk was based on that chapter. It's now out for pre-sale. I need to put it in the community tab on here. At the moment, the community tabs are for you to vote on your favorite cover for the Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual book. Bear in mind that most people on Amazon just see the thumbnail initially before they click through to buy the book. So you have to make sure the thumbnail stands out, and they're done across 3 posts. So please do go and vote for that. Your vote does matter to me. Right, I've done a number of book covers. We've got 10 to choose from at the moment. I did some polling before that, and then I did some more different book covers to make the covers brighter, to see if people preferred the brighter colors because they stand out more on Amazon, the contrast of the colors as well. So I made them more vivid, right? So go and check them out, and please do vote. It really helps. And so the reason why I haven't done Asexual Guide to Sex, continued with that, and I've done this book, is because I knew intuitively that I needed to write Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual. It just came to me that I had to do it. It's a different style of book that I've ever been able to do before. It's a shorter book, and I feel I can make it into a whole series. And I feel that if I start now, at this point in time in my life, it's been a very exciting and interesting and painful and emotional, traumatic, amazing, incredible time in my life this year. I since February, my life's completely changed a lot of the time, because I'm doing the speaking packages. I'm learning more about public speaking. I've done some public speaking training before, but I'm learning far more. I'm having training, networking every single month. Sometimes I'm doing multiple trainings, like in a week or over a period of weeks, and I'm so busy, I just don't have time to rest, really, which I should be resting, because I'm still not 100% over my chest infection. My voice does go sometimes. I'm still coughing a little bit. So I thought my cough had completely gone, but today I've been coughing a little bit again. So coughing stuff, but I don't want to go into that because it sounds yucky. So anyway, I decided that the Asexual Guide to Sex book, I'm probably not going to be able to finish till next year anyway. And this book came up, and I wanted to write a short book because I'll feel better that I've got an actual asexual book out there for the world to read while I'm finishing the Asexual Guide to Sex, because it's like, this is 2017 this came out. Right, I've been working on the Asexual Guide to Sex book since 2019. I published the Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook in 2019, so do grab a copy of that. It's autobiographical, told in superhero style, so if you like that superhero style, you'll love this book. So do get a copy of that as well from Amazon. It's in bookshops as well, you can order it. Well, online bookshops, you can just order it. You can go into Waterstones and Waterstones got this. I don't think Waterstones have got this on their site, but Barnes and Noble have, which is part of the same company. Walmart, go and order it. They can order it for you. So yeah. And so basically what I'm saying is I felt that I needed to get Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual out quicker, because it came to me as an intuitive thing. It's a book that you have to do in the moment. You can't, it's not a book that you're telling your past history. It's like stuff that's happening to you now. So you have to do it in the moment all the time. Also, it's very therapeutic to get my emotions out, going through a very difficult time, trying to get over the guy who I thought was going to be my soulmate in my vision. That was very painful for me, because I don't usually have visions these days, because I purposely stopped myself from doing that for years. And so to be able to do that and be able to see someone and then be able to see a photograph of, God, that's the guy in your actual vision, waking vision, not sleeping vision, was very powerful for me. It was very hurtful for me and painful. It's obviously, this is my emotions. This is not the guy's emotions. The guy didn't even know who I was. I happened to just meet him at the cinema, but obviously, in my opinion, there's no coincidence in life, just lessons we learn from experiences we have, right? But, I'm telling you how I feel. The book is how I feel. It's my point of view. Obviously, their point of view will be different. I respect that, So, I decided that it's probably not going to be till next year, and I wanted a book to come out, and I wanted to do a different book, and I want to do a series if I can, because I know a lot of successful fictional authors, they have series out, right? And a lot of it, the biggest selling genre in book writing, if you want to just know, is romance. And even though mine is not fictional romance, it's real romance, clearly there is kind of a niche market for the type of book I think that I'll be writing. I just feel it's kind of like an untapped market, and it's one that I could really succeed in. Like, potentially I could get up to 4 books a year out if I did this. Obviously, with the Asexual Guide to Sex, when that comes out, it's going to be a lot of promotion for months. It's going to be, that's why I need to leave it till next year, because I've got to finish it, which is going to probably take another couple of months. And then I'll have more time, I think, in some ways next year, because I've done my Oxford talk now, but I'll be doing other talks next year. And I'm in the co-authored book is already on pre-sale, so that's coming out before Christmas. I've had a lot of ambitions that I needed to fulfill this year, but I have applied for a TEDx for next year talking about asexuality, so I'll be carrying on with that, and hopefully I'll get that. Because I've passed through the first stage, but I've not gone through to the others because they're only just doing that TEDx in December this year. So I'm already over a year ahead applying for the next year. And one of my Facebook friends is actually doing the TEDx that I've applied to. So it's very interesting to see behind the scenes of what she's doing. Very interesting. Obviously, I'm not guaranteed to get that TEDx, but I'm going to keep applying and getting hopefully at least one TEDx. You know, I think it's very important to do that. There are other people who've done talks on asexuality before on TEDx, so I've got to do something different, which I've already submitted my whole outline for my talk. So, and I did have your help, or people on this channel's help, where I was asking about talk title ideas and stuff like this, and my concept, and on Facebook back then. So I appreciate all your help, I really do. So yeah, so the Asexual Guide to Sex, I'm still doing it, but I do know I'm at the stage where I have to change some chapters around. It's going to require a lot of intense concentration and be very time consuming. And I think from January, I'm away on holiday, in case you didn't know that, for a lot of days. But at the moment, I'm working every day. I don't have much time to rest. So I didn't go to sleep till nearly 8 a.m. this morning. And I woke up at 5:20, was it? Something like that. And then 4:35. I went out food shopping at 5:30, I think it was. So I literally, I did get 8 hours sleep naturally, but it's like I'm on a different schedule. It's like a lot of the time at the moment, I'm awake throughout the night and sleeping more in the day, later in the day till nearly the evening. So it's really weird. But I've got so much to do because I've been so sick and I haven't been in my groups. Like last night, I spent 7 hours in my asexual groups, like going through all the comments for like the last 4 weeks, making sure that everyone knows that I care about them and I'm replying to their comments. That is a lot because I run 6 groups, asexual groups on Facebook. It's hard. It's just me running them nowadays. So I like running them, but it's just hard because I haven't been in there much because I've been so poorly and I haven't been streaming on here. I've been having to do work. I am in a summit next month on the 14th of December. So next month, I'm a spectator in a summit, an online summit on the 2nd of December. On the 8th, I'm having an interview about asexuality, I think it is, about what I do anyway. And then on the 14th, I'm actually the first keynote speaker after the host of the Be and Become Summit, which I've got to promote that soon. And so that is huge. This is an online summit. Up to 500 people are going to be registered. They anticipate 500. Of that, you know, on an online event, usually about 3 on the first day, because I'm the first speaker on the first day after the host, I'll get the max amount of people watching me. So usually if people register about 500, you usually get about 300 and something. That's a good turnout. So that's a lot of people. That's a big audience, bigger than the Oxford audience. So, you know, I have to prepare for that. I've got to prepare PowerPoint presentation slides. I've also got to put some newsletters out. I've got to update my blogs. I've got to actually post stuff about Oxford yet online, like on my blogs and that. Newsletters. I've got to promote the book I'm in, the Blue Talks book, Business, Life and Universe. My my chapter is called 9 Steps How to Reinvent Yourself. It was called 9 Steps How to Reinvent Yourself to Become Your Best Future Self. It's just called 9 Steps to Reinvent Yourself to Become Your Best Future Self, because they took out the word how to, basically. No, the word how. So it's 9 steps to reinvent yourself to become your best future self. Yes, that's what it's called. That's what my talk was based on. But it took, in my talk in Oxford, was just how to reinvent yourself to become your best future self. It didn't have the word 9 steps in there, words, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I decided that the Asexual Guide to Sex would probably take me longer to do than finish it this year anyway. And I wanted to get a book out quickly, which I still haven't finished it yet. So I've got this book out before Christmas. I need to finish it off, as well as doing all the other stuff I've got to do in the present moment. Finish this off. Then I have to go through it and do some editing to it, obviously. If there's spelling errors, for example, I'm allowed to use slang and colloquial language and stuff like that. So I have some words that you wouldn't usually necessarily see in a polished non-fiction book, because in a diary book, you're meant to talk how you speak in everyday life, not polished, professional, like making sure everything's pristine type thing you would do in a reference book like Asexual Guide to Sex. It is conversational style, but it's a lot more like serious, you know what I mean? It's a lot more, it's conversational style because that's my style of writing. Is good, but it's told in a more academic type of, you know what I mean? It's more polished, that's what I'll say. Whereas the Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual is not. But potentially, if I can do a series of it, then I could do up to 4 books a year, which would obviously help, you know, help asexuals out, help raise more awareness of asexuality. Plus, it'd be really good for me to be able to write more and get books out quicker. Because the Asexual Guide to Sex book is taking me so long. I don't think I'm going to write a book longer than the Asexual Guide to Sex. I'm never going to say never, just in case, people like, I want you to write a longer book. But I don't think it's going to be, I don't think any book I'm going to write after that is going to be longer. At the moment, I don't envisage that. Obviously, I could, if I wrote an autobiographical book, like with my whole life, it would take volumes and volumes of books. Sorry, I'm gonna have to move my leg. And so yeah, I'm not, if I was doing an actual biography of my life, I think it would take too long to write that. I could do parts of my life, but by doing the Diary Confessions book, it's like continual autobiographical account behind the scenes. And when you see a reality TV show, you then have another show showing you behind the scenes of how that show's put together. Obviously, I'm live stream on here. It's a bit like a reality TV show a lot of the time, with my vlogs as well, continuous vlogs. Then the book is kind of like behind the scenes of what else goes on that you're missing because you don't see everyday life, if you know what I mean, behind my everyday life, if that makes sense. So it's a bit like, you get the show that is behind the show, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? So I don't know if you watch Diary of a CEO at all. There's a best-selling book he's got out, the guy who, he's a dragon from Dragon's Den as well. So Diary of a CEO is a very interesting talk show, and I watch that a lot, when I can, because it's on, like, a lot of the interviews are nearly 2 hours long. But he has a diary book out, but that is a more business book, so it's a lot more polished, a lot more professional. It's not conversational everyday life book. So the diary book that will be like is a everyday conversational book. So it's not a business book, it's a life book. You know what I'm saying? But in Diary of a CEO, he's recently started doing behind the scenes of a Diary of a CEO. So he's got what it takes to make that show, what's happening behind the scenes. And so you can see things that you wouldn't usually see. So I think having the book, especially if it becomes a series, will add more I was going to say add more juice, but maybe that's the wrong word. It will add more flavor to this show, if you know what I mean. So people will be able to get the books of what's going on in my life behind the scenes of my actual reality TV style chat show here. So it'll be like the book goes with the show, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So the Asexual Guide to Sex book, I'm still going to be publishing. It's going to be next year because there's no way I can fit it in this year and finish it off correctly, because I know it flows right up to when I've edited it, but I know some of the other chapters and parts I need to change around so that the Asexual Guide to Sex book flows in order. I was aware when I was writing it that it wasn't totally in exactly the right order, but I wrote it in the order it was in. So it means I have to rewrite some parts of it in order for it to flow correctly in the new order it's going to be. But it's going to be a better order, more chronological order, a more orderly fashion for if you are needing that book. So that is why I've decided to devote the time that I've got left in this year to the other things that I need to do, which is a lot. I mean, I've got so much to do before Christmas. I haven't even started Christmas shopping yet. I barely have time to do anything but work all the time at the moment because I've got so much going on, so much going on. I mean, the book I'm in, the Blue Talks book, Volume 4, Business Life Universe, I haven't even started fully promoting that yet. We're supposed to do interviews with the other authors in the book, which if I do that, I'll be on my Make Money Make Cash channel because it's a business style book, and I want to interview other authors on there anyway. But at the moment, I haven't got time to do that. I've got to do my accounts. So I am self-employed, registered self-employed in the UK, and you have to file your accounts before January. And I haven't actually done that yet. Yes, I've done a lot of the paperwork for it beforehand, but I haven't tallied it up. I haven't done all the actual final statistics, which take usually a week to do. So I've got to find time to do all this before then. I'm going away for the majority of January, so I need to get it in before Christmas. That's a lot of work for me to do, because I earn little bits of money here and there. I don't have one massive income stream at the moment. I just earn little bits of money here and there, right? Then it takes ages to do it because you have to make sure every receipt is I don't have electronic software, I do it manually. So you have to make sure every little receipt, and I do traditional accounting, which is a very old-fashioned system. So I don't do modern accounts. I'm still on a traditional system. I'm on that on purpose. But once you go on that, you can't really, you need to keep it on that for certain reasons. And so that takes a lot longer because you have to go by invoice number, not when it actually came in and out of your account. You have to do it by invoice number. It's very complicated. It isn't that complicated when you know how, but it takes a while to get into that type of thing. The 20th of December is about the time for Christmas shopping. Thank you, Jonathan. Usually, sometimes in the past, I've started Christmas shopping like 6 months earlier. That's how well organized I was before. And now I'm like, I've got this summit on the 14th of December that I'm a keynote speaker for, and that summit goes on 14th and 15th. So although I'm a keynote speaker on the first day, speaking first of all, I'm going to attend both days because you never know if the host is going to want you again, right? You never, and obviously I want to be there hearing the other speakers and part of the whole thing. So I want to show up for both nights, but it's in the middle of the night because it's not in the UK and they're not starting it till the evening. So when I do my talk, I thought it was going to be 10:20 at night. It's going to be 11:20 because the clocks have gone back in the UK now. So it doesn't actually finish till like 3 a.m. in the morning in the UK time. So I think it's 3 a.m. Was it 4 a.m.? It's anyway, it's at least 3 a.m. and it's crazy. But that's on the 14th and 15th of December. So I'm gonna have to sleep in the day and then be there at night. I've never done an online summit and been a speaker, but I've done online summits and been a spectator, but I've never been a speaker before. So this is brand new for me. I'm hoping I get it really right, but I've got to create the right presentation. I've got to practice that. So this is so much. So after the 15th of December, then I'll be able to start thinking about other stuff. But really, up until then, I can't really do much. Like, it's the 15th of November now, so I've got a month to pack everything in. Like, it's crazy. And I have booked, so I get one bit of time to myself. I booked Disney on Ice the 23rd of December. 23rd of December, 23rd of November, which is next week. I booked that months ago. I've got the tickets already. Ticket, I should say, because it's just me going. I got like a front row seat. So I am going to Disney on Ice on the 23rd of November. And I'm really looking forward to that because I've damn well earned that. And when I go to Disneyland Paris and London in January, I will have really earned that. I've done that especially for myself as a Christmas and New Year present to myself. I booked Disneyland Paris, paid for that. I'm going, I haven't got all my spending money together yet. I've got London booked as well. I've got all the stuff up there. If you haven't seen my shorts video, haven't seen my long live stream about that, please do go and check that out because I've got the itinerary of what I'm doing, all asexual stuff. Happy without sex, it was great. Because people are like, some people are like, how can you enjoy your life without sex? I'm like, I really enjoy my life without sex because I'm focusing on everything else but that, and I'm having happy times and euphoric times. The thing I'm missing most at the moment in terms of like not being able to do stuff is obviously not really having much time to myself, but also I do like clubbing. But every time I go clubbing, not every time, a lot of the times I go clubbing, I do get sick again. And I'm still getting over illness at the moment. I do get more tired as well because I'm still recovering from a chest infection. So I'm not at my full capacity. I have watched some movies while I've been sick, but not over the last number of days. I haven't been able to. I haven't had a chance. So I'm so busy. So I don't expect I'll start Christmas shopping probably unless I see anything in the meantime I can just pick up, which I might, till like after the 15th of December. That's when I kind of see most of my Christmas shopping is going to be done, because I need to pay attention to the summit, you know. But my parents have my Christmas decorations at their place because I couldn't fit them in here. And I said to my parents, because I haven't seen them for months, I spoke to my mum on the phone. I'm like, I'll probably see you at Christmas. But I realised they've got all my Christmas decorations. So if I don't see them before, I won't be able to have Christmas decorations unless I go and buy some new stuff. But I don't really have much place to store it in this place. Well, virtually nearly zilch place. So I don't know. But I probably can't even fit my Christmas tree anyway, because it's bigger, I think, than the distance between the one table breakfast bar I got downstairs and the ceiling, because the ceilings are so low in this place. I live in the attic, basically, in the roof, in the loft. Oh, well, it's not in the loft, it's in the roof. So yeah, I've got so much going on. So, you know, like, and I have to update people in my groups because I haven't put everyone into my groups yet, and it's crazy. And I think live streaming wise, I'm not going to be able to do full live streams all the time at the moment because of the workload. But obviously, sometimes my throat keeps going a bit croaky. So I've got to watch that, because I do have to make sure it's best for next month when I'm speaking, you know, doing the public speaking and the summit. So I'm going off on tangents now, I know. But I write, you know, I'm writing currently about what happened in Oxford, with, you know, like speaking Oxford University. I'm at the point where I'm about to like actually do the talking. So I left it as a cliffhanger for when I next talk. So in the book it's like, and I'm just about to speak, but now I've got to go because I've got to do other things in this time zone. So it's quite interesting, but I'm really looking forward to getting the Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual out. This is a huge task for me, right? Because I've got to get the cover finalized, you know, whichever covers works best for people. I've then got to, like, obviously I've got to do some editing to it. Got to get my proofreader to read it. In a diary book, some people don't bother with, you can't put chapters because there are no chapters, right? Everything is by date, not by chapter. But in effect, the dates act like chapters. So I'm going to be doing that slightly different, because in some diary books, they don't have any table of contents. And obviously in a business book, they have a lot of businessy type titles for the diary, because it's done more of a chapter type thing. But in an actual lifestyle diary, you know, it will be the dates. So I'll be doing the table of contents by the dates, but it'll have a little bit more information to grab people's attention for the chapter. That's what I'm planning. We'll just have a few words in there. So that's how it's going to be. So the style is going to be a bit different to other diary books, but it's also going to be very interesting. I like doing a different style book. I'm very excited about this book. It's very intense though when I write it. I have to say, it does make me tired, because like yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah. I spent about 5 hours doing it, and when I'm typing it's constantly from my head to my keyboard. Years ago I couldn't do that. Years ago I had to write everything down and then put everything from paper onto a computer. But I trained myself to be able to do it from my head to the computer, to cut out all the time of writing on a piece of paper. And that took me quite a while to self-train myself to do that, because I always used to write it and then type all out again. But I realized that's not very good in terms of time. It's very time consuming. It's nice in the terms of like, sometimes it's good to write things down manually anyway. And obviously ideas can come to me. But with the Diary Confessions, most of it just comes in my head. And I decide, is that a good thing to write? Is that a good time to write it now? Do I need to? And sometimes I'll just drop everything else to do the Diary Confessions book, because that's how much of a necessity it is. Because it's actually my diary. Instead of writing a physical paper diary, I'm writing in an online diary, if you like, without it being called without it. It's an actual program that's a diary program. It's actually just writing it in Word, like a diary. And so I might have a lot going on in my mind and I need to get it out on paper. So you are literally in my mind and in my thoughts. Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic. It's like, it's like you're there with me, experiencing these emotions and these feelings, or like, as a friend, like being an observer of them. It's like, oh my gosh. So I would like it to be a series. I would think it's good, because I really want to be able to write some books where I'm getting more books out per year. I think as an author and writer specifically who loves writing, I would like to have more books out. But obviously there's a lot of other elements, because I I do the cover design in the Kindle format, and then I have to pay someone to take my design and make it into a printed version of a cover, because I don't do that bit. So I say, this is my design. Can you then like put it in a printed version? And this is like the blurb I want on the back. So I give them that. If there's a photograph on the back, I'll put that on there. But with Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic, Asexual will be the first book that I've done where I'm on the front cover. I'm intending to put myself on the front cover of Asexual Guide to Sex, in case you didn't know that. That's been, but I've been quite nervous about doing that. It's something I've been planning to do for a long time. The Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual will be the first book that actually is going to be published where I'm on the front cover. So it'll be very interesting how that goes. You know, it's like if people see me online, they'll be like, oh my gosh, there's something else I want to try with this book as well in terms of like publicizing it. But I'm not going to reveal what that is right now, because I am not sure if I can afford it and how I would do that. But if I do that, it'll be after it's published anyway and got some reviews on it. But I am planning something for that. It's something I want to do. And maybe it'll be in another book about how I did that and how it worked if I decide to do a second book. Maybe, you know what I mean? Because once you start doing these books, if it's popular, it'll be like I'm writing the next book about what happened after the first book, if you know what I mean. Because it'll be like an ongoing life story. So it's kind of good, because it's like you're writing your autobiographical account when it's actually happening, rather than most people that write it in the past. Like, well, they write it about the past, like they're looking at the past. I'm looking at my past now in the book, because I've already in November, and I'm talking about October stuff still in some of it, right? So it has got some element of that. But if it all works out, you'll be just, you'll be getting a new book out that'll be from the previous few months behind the scenes, if that makes sense. So I'm excited, I'm intrigued. It's kind of an experiment as well. So I watch a tarot reader, right, which I never thought I would watch on YouTube. I never thought I would watch tarot readers. I was kind of like, oh, I've got to stay away from them. It's dangerous. I don't want to know my future. I don't want to predict it, because obviously even myself, I didn't like being able to do that type of thing with. So I didn't used to look at that. And then all of a sudden, I think it's over a year ago now, I came across a tarot reader. I came across a few of them. And there's one guy, and he's incredible because he's a business guy. So I really like him. He's very positive with his tarot readings. I don't like watching any negative stuff. And he's very, very good at business. He mentors people in their business. And so I like listening to my tarot reading from him, because he's always kicking our asses. He's always saying, like, you've got to, you've got these dreams, you've got to act on them, go and do them. Don't just sit there. And I find that really motivational. Like, since I've been watching his channel, my productivity has also increased, partly because I'm doing the Blue Talks. But Chris, who's a tarot reader, Chris Reck is his name. He's really good. He's one of the top tarot readers on YouTube. He actually said that, you can benefit from having a network of people around you, from working as a team more with people, from collaborating with people. So that's what I'm doing through Blue Talks, So I've taken his advice on that. And even though obviously when he's doing his tarot readings, he's doing them to whatever star sign, like my horoscope, like my horoscope sign is Taurus, right? I'm quite spot on a lot of the time with the Taurus stuff. But anyway, I started watching him, and he's good for me. So that's why I keep watching him, because he knows a lot of business stuff. My productivity has increased with him. More opportunities are increasing since I listened to his advice, because he's always saying, like, get off your ass and do stuff. He's a tarot reader that tells it like it is. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He'll like, this is coming up in the next 10 years. So you need to do this, this, and now, this, and this now to prepare for it. You need to be ahead of the curve. You need to be ahead of other people. This is how, not ahead as in you're better than them. Thank you for all the hearts. Lots of love to you. But you need to get ahead, as in AI is coming now. There's a lot of crap going on in the world. He doesn't watch news either. I don't watch news. He doesn't watch news, because it's bad for your mind, right? He knows that. So I love watching him, because his mindset, some of his mindset is similar to mine own. And he's always saying, get off your ass and do something. He's always saying about experimenting, right? So this is why, another reason why I'm doing the hyperromantic, Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic, right? The hyperromantic book. Because he said experiment, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. It's an expression he uses all the time. And I've decided to take that. I've decided, okay, Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual. It's a risk, because it's a different style of book that I've never done before. It's not going to be polished or that much edited, which some people heavily criticize on Amazon and other places. but it's meant to be like that because it's a diary book, yeah? We're not meant to have it pristine and proper because that's not how you write in a diary. And, it's just a far out style. Plus, I'm revealing a lot of personal stuff that I'm, being much more vulnerable about. So it's a lot of risk there in that sense. And I'm using the book as an experiment to see whether people like this type of book or not, right? Because he's always saying experiment, right? Because it's better to experiment with things in your life and see what sticks and what works and what doesn't than to have not done anything at all in your life and live with regrets. And I totally agree with that mindset. So since watching him, I am a lot more motivated. I'm a lot more productive, not just because of him, because of all the Blue Talk stuff I'm doing as well. Since February, my life has completely shot up in productivity. I think I've accomplished the most this year in terms of the amount of things I've done than I've ever accomplished in my life in 1 year, I think. But it doesn't mean to, I have met Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth when she was alive. It's in James's Palace. So in terms of things, in terms of credible things I've done incredible things in my previous years of life. But I'm talking about the amount of things. So I met Her Majesty the Queen 1 year. St James's Palace, obviously she passed away now, but I got to speak to her, so that's incredible. I saved someone's life as well. So those two things, in terms of you can't get better than saving someone's life. You can't do something more important than saving someone's life, right? So, I will always say that's the most important thing is saving someone else from dying is the most important thing I could have ever done in my life. And that was in 2013. So I can never, ever do something better than that in my life. Because the stuff that I think now is great is it's never more important than saving someone's life. To me, life is everything. Do you understand what I'm saying? No money, no anything, fame, fortune, or just being on this channel. I want to stay on this channel. I want to do this channel all the time. There's stuff I love in my life, but you cannot replace someone's life. So me being able to save someone's life and from them being dead is the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. Right? And I know that if I went tomorrow, which I'm not going to do, but I don't plan on doing that, I would be happy that I did that for someone. Right? But I have much more to give in life, especially books for asexuals. I got other books, longer books than the short Diary Confessions book I want to write, but not as long as the Asexual Guide to Sex. The other couple of books I've got in mind, at least two, they should probably take a year each maybe to do. I don't know. That's what I think. But the Asexual Guide to Sex I plan to get out next year, and that's going to take me some time. So what I'm saying to you is I have done things in my life that I can't beat in terms of greatness, but in terms of accomplishments in 1 year, the amount of things. I became a best-selling author this year. This book, Asexual Perspectives, even though it's published in 2017, became best-selling author this year. Do you know what a dream that is as a writer and author of my own book publishing imprint? So I'm a best-selling author, I'm a best-selling publisher. Do you know how that feels? That is a dream come true. I've wanted to have my own book publishing imprint since 2010 when I started my quirkybooks.wordpress.com blog. Check that out. Right? I wanted to become a best-selling author and to be able to do that with my own book for asexuals with my own book publishing imprint, Quirky Books. And you can see this book online. You can see it on the Walmart website, Barnes & Noble website, Waterstones website, as well as Amazon. You can order this from bookshops, right? There is no greater feeling in terms of to do with being an author than being a best-selling author. Obviously, one greater feeling could be to be a number one best-selling author, right? But it's a dream come true. Obviously, that's not the same as saving someone's life, right? When you save someone's life, you help them to live. Nothing's more precious than life itself. In terms of having a fantastic year as an author, this is my best year as an author because I've got a best-selling book out, published under my own publishing imprint, and the Blue Talks book, which is with two very famous people that I'm co-authoring, that's already on pre-sale. It should be out before Christmas, I would have thought, to actually get copies on Amazon directly rather than pre-sale, then, that should become hopefully a best-selling book because the others in the Blue Talks range are. So then I'll be another best-selling author of a co-author of an incredible book. So, in terms of speaking as well and all that type of thing, I've achieved so much this year, which I'm still not fully finished because the summit, it'll be my first online summit I'll ever be speaking at in December. Plus, I'm a keynote speaker, which is like the main speaker, other than the host, and like I'm the first speaker on there. You know what I mean? So it's just incredible the stuff that's happened to me this year, and that's still happening. And if I get Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual out, that'd be incredible, especially if it does get to become a bestseller. Obviously, I don't know that. It depends if you help me out by buying the book when it comes out. I have it at a really reduced price in the Kindle version. Obviously, the paperback has printing costs and stuff like that, so I can only put that at a certain price. I can't. Obviously, I'll put it at a price that's, you know, like I put it probably at a bit lower price to begin with, and then that'll go up. But there's, you know, you have to have certain margins with printed books. You know, like Amazon take their costs out for printing, customer service, packaging, and what lot. So you know, you can't do that cheap and inexpensive. But the ebook I'm going to have be really inexpensive to hopefully get the maximum out of sales in the beginning, and hopefully people will review the book because it's reviews that help sell the book. And then I'll see if it's successful or not. But it is an experiment. If it, you know, with an experiment, it's good because there are no failures. People, you know, people can like the book, not like the book. People can love the book. You know, it's an experiment, and you have to kind of experiment in some ways in your life, because if you don't get anywhere. If we play small in life, if we worry about what people think all the time, we never do anything in our lives. And I personally, which is my philosophy in life, would rather like live life to the fullest and max, which is something I do with my hyper-romanticism, than play small and just be afraid of doing things and never trying them. You know, like some people think it's outrageous the fact that I kiss random guys in clubs. To me, it's like, my God, Sandra, you were introverted, shy, huge social anxiety, couldn't even go to clubs years ago, couldn't even be in groups years ago, couldn't even be around people in years ago. You were like a recluse, you know? And to go from being that type of person to be able to be extrovert, social anxiety pretty much gone, to be able to be in close proximity to people when I couldn't even be stood to be touched on the arm years ago. The huge amount of achievements I've made and progress in my life from changing my actual self is incredible. So when I look at that, I think, in blimmin' heck, she's got guts. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I look at myself as an outside, like I'm looking at myself from the outside in. I'm thinking, my God, I wouldn't have. I'm talking about myself, being myself, but I'm thinking, if I wasn't myself, but I am myself. If I was a person outside looking at me, who's not me, but I am me, I'd be thinking, my God, she's got guts. Because sometimes I'm talking like this to myself. I'm looking at myself thinking, oh my God, did you just do that? Even with my writing, sometimes I write something that's so good. I'm like, did you just actually write that, Sandra? I'm like, I'm so impressed with you. How did you write that? How did you do it? And so I'll do something and impress myself. And I'll be like, really? So sometimes I write some stuff and I'm like, this is so good. This is such high level writing. This is incredible. And I'll be so like enthusiastic about myself. I like my own speaking voice. A lot of people hate their own speaking voice. I really do like my own speaking voice. I listen to my shows sometimes. I listen to them back. You know, the ones that are this long. I will literally like listen. And sometimes I get so engrossed in them that a whole hour and something goes by and I've been stuck watching myself. This is not a vain thing. This is just to see what I'm saying. Is it correct? Am I pronouncing things correctly? Obviously, because I'm talking ad-libbing all the time, I'm not saying everything perfect, pristine, and clean. But sometimes I make mistakes because it's live, right? But I'm listening to myself back, like, is my voice nice? Is the tone nice? Am I saying things that I shouldn't be saying? Or am I, you know, as in I made such a big mistake? Or is everything I'm saying okay? You know, like, how is my speech in general? How is my flow? How is my tone? All this type of thing. I don't do it with every video, but I do it with some because I like to see what it's like for a listener or viewer to watch or hear me. And it's very important. So it'll be really good to have feedback about the Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual to see what people think, what people like, and, you know, what people in general think of the book and the style and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to getting it out. And I think I've covered most of why I'm writing the book now, but I think it's very important to note about all the life lessons. I think they're going to be very valuable. So even if you're not so engrossed in the story of my life, I think the actual life lessons, which is the life lessons, are going to be in boxes. Well, they are in boxes. So even though I'm writing quite a lot of text and some things, there's boxes that break some of the text up, and that gives the life lessons. So you can literally skim the page if you want and just get all the life lessons. There's quite a lot of them. And so that's great for people who are like, oh, I just want to know some life lessons right now. Haven't got time to read the whole book, but I want these life lessons from Sandra because I know that I watch her channel. She makes sense in what she's saying. She's always giving valuable advice and guidance, education out on her channel. And I just want to skip to the life lessons. So the life lessons are pretty obvious because they're all in boxes. So I've done that on purpose for people who want to skim read and who just want to get to the nitty gritty life lessons, you know? So I think it's going to be beneficial for those people who enjoy that type of thing, who enjoy like learning stuff from me in that way, you know, and who have things in life like that to contemplate. Because some people, they like to take these life lessons and are like, do I agree with that? What's my perspective on that? Do I think that's right? Do I think that's wrong? Or maybe I haven't even thought about that. So it could be thought provoking and then lead you off into thinking thoughts for yourself, which you may want to go and explore more about yourself. So I think it's a really interesting book. It's got a lot of elements. I would say that obviously it's non-fiction, but got elements probably of fictional style in there. A little bit of, people might think it's a little bit of a fantasy, although I don't believe any of it's, like the only bits I'm talking about are the bits where I actually think if this guy was a good guy, or if this guy was to change himself to be the right guy for me, like how would that be? That's kind of like, some people would call that a fantasy element. And I think there's a like drama in it. I think there's cliffhangers in it. You want to turn the next page, so there's suspense in it. A lot of obviously hyper romanticism, but there's quite a lot of like delving into the mind of a hyper romantic, like why are they thinking this? And also it shows the difficulties, like me and Jonathan were talking about in chat earlier. Like it's different, like how you're actually like Jonathan, like when we are talking earlier, Jonathan's in chat, by the way, if you just popped on here. Jonathan basically summed up what it's like for me. Like in general, I sometimes feel a conflict between operating on my rational side in Spock mode, he called it, but sometimes feelings can be like a stubborn horse. Yeah. So, it is difficult being hyper romantic because I've got the sensible side of me. Like, this guy is not the right guy for you, Sandra. He's no good for you. He can't give you what you want. He doesn't appreciate you. He doesn't really value your worth. He's clearly not the right guy for you, right? He's not showing up in a way that's good for you, right? But then I have the hyper romanticize that, oh my God, I really have strong feelings for this guy. I really like this guy. I visualize this possible future with this guy with me. And, if this was to happen. And so that is a real struggle. It's like an internal hyper romantic struggle compared to the actual reality of the logical positioning of the situation. You know what I mean? And I think the contrast of that is very interesting, because I think in life we all battle with these things where we know what we should do sometimes, but what we should do and what we actually do can be two different things. But sometimes the best things in life can come out of doing what you're not supposed to logically do. When you follow your heart, you follow your emotions, you follow your instinct, you follow your intuition, and you go with the flow, sometimes magic does actually happen. And sometimes, even if that person is not right for you, it can lead to somewhere or something or some situation where you can experience some happiness and pleasure and excitement. And, you can live a high octane, energetic, vibrant life because you're having experiences that other people wouldn't do, if you know what I mean. Maybe they wouldn't do them because it'd be no good for them, they think, and maybe they're right. But then staying home, being sensible all the time is not sometimes always a good thing, right? Because we're not experiencing life. We're not experiencing the excitement and the emotions of the hyper romanticism and the moment when you're having to, well, you don't have to, where you're kissing someone that you don't even know, and you're just enjoying the energy with them of the romanticism. And well, for them it's no doubt sexual attraction energy. With me it's not. It's aesthetic attraction and some romance and kissing excitement. I don't get the sexual attraction because I'm not sexually attracted to anyone. So when a guy's in the club, he's sexually attracted to me. When I'm in a club with a guy, I'm aesthetically usually attracted to him. And I can have such aesthetic attraction for a guy that I think is as powerful and as strong as sexual attraction guy experience for me. So I think the two together is quite explosive. But for me, I'm looking at the guy in an asexual way. For him, he's looking at me in a sexual way. So it's like both experiencing the same time scale, the same moment, but in different ways. I think that's a very interesting contrasting situation, you know. I think it's very juxtaposition. I think it's very interesting, exciting in some ways, heartbreaking, painful, and all of those emotions in one. And I think a lot of the time my life is like an ongoing, like, soap opera or something. I don't want to say that because I don't want to trivialize my life, because it's very important, my life, to me, but it's like an ongoing drama sometimes. It's like okay, so my life is like continuous stories all the time. That's what I feel. I felt this for years. And so this is partly as well a huge part of why I decided to write Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, because I feel that my life is such like a storybook all the time, and like it's a new chapter and what's going to happen next. I feel like that's my life, and I feel like, why don't you capitalize on this, if you like, and put it in a book, right? Because you can raise awareness of asexuality. Hopefully eventually you can start making full-time income from writing, which I very much don't do at the moment. Like, all the writing money, like I said, usually goes back into helping asexuals in some ways: domains, website hosting, more internet, you know, faster internet, all this type of stuff, which is good, and it will always, you know, first and foremost go for that. But it would be nice to actually earn more money doing writing, like, full time eventually, you know, doing it a lot more, because I think it's just something I really love, and it's my life purpose. And other than helping asexuals, I'd rather be doing that than anything else, if you know what I mean. It's very therapeutic for me. I feel like I'm on top of the world when I write. I feel like I'm not that bothered about anything. Like, when I don't write, I get really kind of like emotional, more bothered about things, more attached to other people, more worried about things more. But when I'm just writing, it's like it's a completely different life. It's like my best life. It's like a deep sense of satisfaction in my soul. And it's like I just feel so euphoric, and I feel like this is the right thing for me to do. And I feel that I just need to do that for my soul. I feel it's what I'm born to do. Write books, loads of books, and do some speaking on some stages as well. I feel that writing, first and foremost, is my life purpose. So more than public speaking, you know, that comes first, followed very closely by asexuality. Like, if I don't write, I get really ill, to be honest with you. And like I said, sometimes I just put everything aside to do Diary Confessions books. It's like I have to write this now because I need to get my emotions out. And it's, instead of writing it in a personal diary just for myself, I'm writing it in a online Word format diary for other people to read. So it's quite interesting, that process. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting the book out. I plan to have it out before Christmas, which means I've got to finish the book, do some editing myself, get my friend who works in editorial anyway to proofread it. Then I need to pay, you know, like, well, in the Kindle version, I will just need to, like, make sure I've got the right cover that people like the most, then do all the table of contents, which will literally be the dates of the, because there's no chapters in a diary book. So basically every date's a chapter in effect. And then, you know, do any little bits to it that I need to do, which isn't so much. You don't have so much back and front matter with a diary book, you know what I mean? There's less of that. And, you know, make sure that it's ready to put out to the world and then upload it to Amazon. With the printed version, I need to pay a cover designer, which I have one in mind, who works on the Blue Talks books, to be able to do the printed version. Obviously the book blurb I need to do, the description I need to do. There's quite a lot of components. Make sure I've got the right ISBN on there. If I want it to go into actual physical bookstores, and I need to upload it to Ingram Spark. Next year I plan on getting Asexual Guide to Sex, if I can, if it's possible to get it into bookstores. That's my big goal, ambition and dream for next year. So I've got a lot to focus on. With the Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, I could just put it on expanded distribution, in which case other bookstores can get it anyway. But I don't know where to upload it to Ingram Spark as well. That's something I need to work on. And every different version I have of the book, I have to put a separate ISBN on. So I bought a batch of ISBNs up front, which I've used on Asexual Perspective book. Don't forget to grab a copy of that on Amazon or another bookstore. And then fibromyalgia, yeah, so self-help handbook. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited. You can tell that I'm so excited about Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, right? I hope you enjoy it as much as I've been intrigued and excited and thrilled to write it for you. and I'm praying that I can get it out in good time before Christmas. There's not much time left with everything else I've got to do. So yeah, and Asexual Guide to Sex will be what I will continue on will be a book I will continue working on next year to get it published next year. I keep saying about when I'm going to publish it, so I've given up trying to say I'm definitely going to publish it at this specific time. I don't promise a time anymore with Asexual Guide to Sex, because I don't want to let people down, because I've been saying for years I'm going to get published this year and it hasn't happened. So I don't want to disappoint people, but it will be worth the wait, you know. And I do mention the book in my Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual book, you know. So, and I mention it as well, I think, in the Blue Talks chapter. So yeah, don't forget, I got a copy of the Blue Talks volume 11 book I'm in, which I'll be putting in the community tab soon, right? So look out for that. And anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this live stream all about Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't watched all of this live stream, please go back to the beginning so you can understand what sparked the whole idea of, where I'm coming from, all the different elements that is going to be in the book. Don't forget to vote on your favorite book cover. This is the 15th of November 2023 when I'm recording this live. So by the weekend, by Sunday at the latest, I want to have the book cover finalized by this Sunday. Yes. So most people will be voting in the next 48 hours, the 15th of November, 16th of November. But I'm going to make a final decision this Sunday on the book cover. So if you let me look at my calendar a minute, I'm going off with so this Sunday is the 19th of November 2023. So get your votes in now. So I've created 3 posts in the community tab that have options. It says 1 to 9. It's actually 1 to 10 because I add an extra book cover, which is a very good book cover, I might add, because it's purple and red, which would indicate asexual colors, and red for the hyperromanticism. But I hadn't done that type of cover in previous polls. So check that out. There's like a purple red version, a red and purple version. So there's actually 10 options. There's one post that's got 4 options, another post like 1 to 4, another post that's got options 5 to 8, and another post that's got 9 and 10th option. Go and vote on those. I want to know which you think is the best. At the moment, it's very interesting to see which covers people are picking. Don't forget, most people on Amazon do look at the thumbnail first before anything else. So the thumbnail has to stand out, as well as people liking the cover when it's close up. So go and check that out. You might have to like focus in on some of the book covers, but make sure that it stands out as a thumbnail. Really looking forward to seeing what you come up with as in terms of your favorite book covers. Love you lots. Thank you for all your support. When the book does come out, I hope you'll get it in at least Kindle version. That'll be really inexpensive, and I hope you'll leave a review so we can start getting more eyeballs on asexuality. I don't think many people know about hyperromanticism either, so I think that'll be very interesting. I think it's kind of like not very much spoken about, so it'll be interesting to see how many people relate to it. And I love you all dearly. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I know a lot of people who watch this channel aren't yet subscribed, so please check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. It helps me to raise more awareness of asexuality, because it helps the algorithm with YouTube when people are subscribed to it. Right, make sure you've got the notifications turned on, the bell icon of when I go live, and also YouTube notifications need to be turned on, because otherwise you'll just get like an email notification. But if you're not actually in YouTube, you won't know unless you've got your email open. So make sure YouTube notifications are on, as well as my individual channel notifications. And yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I really appreciate it. Any more questions, comments, queries about Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, please put them in the comments below. And I'll see you soon next video or live stream. Lots of love. Take care. And I'll see you soon. Bye.